Don't you know who I am? I am the high value man! High value! High value! High value! High value! Coming to paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, 1987. Learn lessons about life and teenage love in the 1980s with this coming-of-age John Haynes story. Pre-order your copy of John Haynes 1987 at online booksellers everywhere. Earlier this month, so-called manosphere guru Rollo Tomasi decided to put up a list of what is supposed to be the quickest path to becoming a so-called high-value man. Now, according to Rollo Tomasi, the quickest path to becoming a high-value man is to 1. Not get married, 2. Avoid family creation, 3. Have a vasectomy in your 20s, 4. Lift consistently, 5. Eliminate all sedations, 6. Learn game and networking, 7. Play to your strengths and build wealth, and 8. Resist easing up on your focus. Now, this entire list on the quickest path to becoming a high-value man has been criticized by many on social media, and when I take a critical examination of this list, it shows me how arbitrary the definition of high-value man is. Now, the term high-value man has been around the manosphere for an extended period of time, and it became very popular in the circles of black YouTube when the late Kevin Samuels started to coin this phrase. And the late Kevin Samuels' definition of high value seems to run different than white guy Rollo Tomasi's, and I remember back in the day Kevin Samuels saying that a high value man was a completely different thing. And again, when I look at these terms for high value, you can't really see any worth in them because it seems to be something that's subjective from individual to individual. And because it's subjective from individual to individual, you really cannot take anything that any of these so-called gurus say regarding high value at face value, because if you take what they say at face value, you're getting advice from someone who's giving you advice that's worth a $5 food stamp without the book. Because that's what Rollo Tomasi's so-called list actually is. I mean, his list is basically trying to sell you a gimmick that will lead to you not being a high-value man, but it's going to put you on the road to becoming a pathetic simp. Because to sit there and say, oh, do not get married, that's one of those terms that a lot of these manosphere guys like to do, because a lot of guys are really scared of marriage because of feminism. But if you are a man who serves the Most High, you understand that marriage is a good thing, and it's a good thing when you have a marriage under the Most High's order. Being married is something that God wants men and women to do, but many of these guys like Rollo Tomasi and these manosphere guys, they have been burnt, and many of them are just parroting narratives that they've heard from many in men's social circles. And while being married as related to the state's order is bad, being married under God's order is good, because there is no transgressions as related to a sexual relationship that a man has in a marriage, and he is in that marriage with a woman who will help him build his family. And that's why marriage is important, because you need a helpmeet to help you go out here and build. And in order for you to go out here and build anything of value, you do need your helpmeet to help you out, because without your helpmeet, you're going to be just, in some cases, getting frustrated. Sometimes you're going to get stressed out, and sometimes you need a second opinion to allow you to see things from a perspective. So a wife is a good person to have at your side, and that's something many guys aren't really thinking about critically when they listen to comical lists like this. Now, Rollo Tomasi wants to talk about avoiding family creation, but a man's whole purpose on earth by the Most High standards are two things. One is to be a steward who does the work of the Most High, and two, his job is to go out here and spread his seed by having a wife and going out here and building a family. The whole purpose of going out here and having any sort of worth as related to your life is to go out here and go out here and have your family and teach your family the gospel. That is what the Most High wants you to do. He wants you to have a family, and he wants us to have families because that's how the gospel gets passed on to the next generation. However, because a generation of males went out here and got traumatized by years of listening to feminist ideology and being traumatized by the family court system and its gynocentric policies, many men are told you don't want to have a family, and they're taught that having a family is a burden because they believe they're going to wind up having all their money taken away in child support and spousal support. But your job as a man ultimately is about creating that family under God, and your job is to go out here and build that family. That's what the Most High put you on earth to do. He puts you on earth to go out here and build a family, because if you don't have a family, there's nobody there to see you as valuable, because the whole high value concept, it just forgets about the whole and most important thing, and that is being a father, and that's a valuable person in the community. When you don't have fathers in a community, you don't have leaders to go out here and set order, you don't have men to go out here and create structure, and you don't have anybody that people value. So how can you be a high value man if you are not a father? Critical question I would ask Rollo Tomasi if I ran into him, because what makes a man valuable in society is the fact that he has a family that he is teaching his life lessons to, and he is teaching and preparing a son the male life skills and male survival skills in order to be able to go out in the world, and teaching a daughter the values that will make her a suitable wife to another man. But that doesn't really mean anything to Rollo Tomasi, who advises men to go out here and have a vasectomy in their 20s. And this is one of the most absurd things I have heard, because why would you want to cut off your seed in order to go out here and prevent yourself from having a legacy? Another critical question I would ask Rollo Tomasi, because a man in his 20s is on the road to becoming in his prime, and he really wants to make sure that he has seed that goes out here and allows him to be able to bear children when he finds a woman who will become a suitable wife. That's what a man wants to do. But Rollo Tomasi thinks, oh, a high-value man is a man who's had a vasectomy, but that has no value to any of the women that the high-value man wants to chase, because if a man wants to seek out a woman to become his wife, his main reason for going out here and getting involved with a woman is to find a partner who will be a suitable wife. And that's the main reason why you would want to go out here and make sure that you have your seed intact, because having a vasectomy is only something a whoremonger male wants to do, because what the whoremonger male wants to do is go out here and run through a whole bunch of women and be able to use the women for their bodies and then discard them after they finished pumping and dumping them. That's the only reason why a male would want to go out here and have a vasectomy in their 20s, is they don't want to be a responsible steward under the Most High. No, what they want to be is a whoremonger male who wants to sit there and have all of these so-called high-value assets that they dangle on a carrot in front of these women, and then use that whole high-value assets to go out here and use and pump and dump the women, and then create the kinds of women who are just broken and bitter because they have been misled to believe that they have a chance at a relationship with a so-called high-value man, but this man does not value the women in his life. No, all he wants to do is have himself a harem of women that he can go out here and pump and dump. And then after he finishes pumping and dumping, what he's doing is just going out here and thinking that he's going to chase and use women. And again, this man is not a high value man. No, this is a man who has the values and morals of the lowest part of society, and he's not somebody who any man should aspire to be like. Now, this list goes on talking about lift consistency, but when you look at Rollo Tomasi, you don't see a guy who looks like he lifts very much. So he's looking like he's a hypocrite right here, because when I'm looking at this scrawny middle-aged man, he don't look like he do much lifting. And he's saying lift consistency, talks about eliminating all sedations, when I possibly believe this dude is possibly taking some sleeping pills or taking some melatonin. And then he talks about learning game and networking, and that's something that may help a man as related to business and related to socializing with women, but it's not really something that any high value man it makes him a high value man. And again, he talks about playing to your strengths and building wealth. Well, you can't really build wealth without a helpmeet to help you go out here and help you build. You can't really go out here and play to your strengths because you don't have somebody to help you work on your weaknesses. That's where this whole list starts to get absurd, because while you may think you know your strengths, usually a woman who is a good cis woman, what she's going to do is go out here and show you your weaknesses, show you where you're going wrong, and give you some perspective. So I'm listening to this list by Rollo Tomasi. He's talking about play to your strengths, but you really need a wife, because a wife is going to show you where you're going wrong and give you some perspective on things, and that's going to help you become stronger. And when he sits there and talks about building wealth, well, who are you building wealth for? Critical question I would like to ask Rollo Tomasi, because if you're not married, if you're not building a family because you had a vasectomy in your 20s, what is the purpose of your wealth? That's the critical question I would like to ask Rollo Tomasi, because wealth has no value unless you have heirs. Wealth has no real value, because once you die and you are single, a lot of times your money just goes back to the state if you have no heirs. And that's the main reason why a man wants to get married and wants to build a family. He wants to build a family in a marriage so that his heirs can go out here and inherit the wealth that he has gone out here to build. And that's the main reason why a man goes out here and works towards becoming a high value man, as they allege. A man works towards building himself up so that he can go out here and share his wealth with his family, and he wants to make sure that his family goes out here and continues to promote his legacy. and that legacy is passed on through his sons and his daughters. That is the main reason why a man goes out here and again builds wealth and builds a family, so that his family can continue promoting the gospel and going out here and maintaining what he worked on and built over the years. Now, Rollo Tomasi says resist easing up on your focus as the final point of becoming a high-value man. And what are you focusing on? Another critical question I would like to ask Rollo Tomasi: if you're not working towards building a marriage and a family, what are you actually focusing on? What is your ultimate goal in life? That's the critical question. Another one I want to ask Rollo Tomasi as related to this absurd list, because it's absolutely absurd to sit there and say this is the road to becoming a high value man, when this list doesn't really show you what is going to be a high value man and who this high value man is going to represent value to. Because what value is a man who is not interested in getting married? What value is a man who is not interested in building a family? What value is a man with no seed? What value is a man who, yes, he may have a lot of money, but he doesn't have any sort of purpose or direction? I mean, being a single guy with a whole bunch of money, that really gets old over time. And it gets old because you're just sitting up there trying to have your so-called good times, but life is passing you by. That is the thing that Rollo Tomasi is sitting up here not understanding, and many of the followers out here who follow this cult of high value, they're chasing this ideal of becoming this high value man, not understanding their worth or value to the Most High God, because God put men on earth to become stewards, and he put men on earth to become men who go out here and find their purpose by doing his work on earth. But what Rollo Tomasi wants men to do is go out here and become whoremonger males who basically are just here to remain in a state of arrested development, where they're out here just using women and then looking to try to go out here and build so-called wealth. And as they're making all of this money, they're not seeing that their money is not going to have any value at the end of the day. Because if you have a bunch of money and no one to share it with, then that money basically is just there for the sake of being there. And that's not really much of a life when you really start to think about it. It really is an existence. And again, it's a sad, empty existence, because over time, as you're out here, so-called high-value man, going out here and just having your casual relations with women, and getting them to drop the skid mark jockey thong and allowing them to get a taste of the atomic waste from your carbon rod, what happens is this so-called high-value man becomes a very empty man. And while he has all of the money in the world, he does not have the richness and abundance of life that the Most High wants to give him. No, he has an empty existence where all of the women in his life just become nameless, faceless individuals that he eventually becomes detached from, because he never formed a connection with anyone. And the whole concept of high value man eventually becomes worthless. Now, this whole high value man concept, I said years ago, was nothing more than a gimmick. And it's a gimmick that has really gone out here and exploited a whole bunch of gullible, naive men. And many of those men, they're out here chasing this whole thing known as a high value man. But if you ask anybody what a high value man is, you get multiple definitions. I remember watching one channel where the definition of high value man was completely different. And I remember watching Kevin Samuel's definition of high value man, and it was drastically different than what Rollo Tomasi here is putting. So there really is no definition, and there's no definition by design, because this is a gimmick, and the whole goal of this gimmick is to go out here and get men to go out here and follow behind another quick and easy solution towards getting women. And the whole thing with high value man is you've got a bunch of guys looking to follow instead of lead, because what makes a man valuable to a community is his ability to go out here and lead. And what I see with a lot of these so-called guys talking about high value man is a bunch of them are beta males, and these beta males, what they want to do is they want to go out here and find a group of other males to go out here and follow them. So they prepare to try to tell you they've got this solution as related to becoming a high value man. But a high value man to them is no different than a guy in high school who wants to be the most popular guy in school. And these guys, they want to be what they call the alpha male. And again, they don't know the definition of these terms. They want to be what they want to be is a leader who is respected by the entire community. But when you listen to the things that they're saying, they're showing you that they're not fit and ready for leadership. Many of these males who come up with these whole points talking about high value man don't have any sort of self-worth, and because they don't have any sort of self-worth, they don't value themselves, because only a man who does not value himself wants to not get married and wants to avoid a family, wants to end his bloodline by getting a vasectomy. That's what a man who has low self-esteem wants to do, because a man who can go out here and lead, he knows what the definition of alpha male is. He knows what the definition of beta male is. And again, an alpha male is one that has self-confidence and self-worth and can go out here and lead himself. And he also can go out here and respect the authority of others to follow if they are experts in an area, and has the humility to respect another man if he is more knowledgeable in an area than him. But he will go out here and lead his family. He will go out here and set order. He will go out here and understand that he, as a steward of God, has to submit to the authority of the Most High in order for him to be an effective leader. That is what an alpha male is, whereas a beta male is a male who goes out here and looks to submit to women, and he looks to go out here and submit to female authority figures, and he looks to be the follower behind women, and he looks to follow behind other men that he sees have more confidence than him. And that's what I see your Rollo Tomasi as, one of these beta males who is out here looking to try to sell the whole narrative of high value man as related to selling his books about manhood and masculinity. But he shows he knows nothing about manhood and masculinity, because any man out here understands that all men have value to God, and all men have value to the Most High, because he created them, and he created them to have a purpose, and he created them to have a purpose to go out here and do his work. And part of that work is getting married and bearing families and children and building a family that allows the gospel to be taught to those children, so that the gospel can be taught to everyone on earth. That is what has the highest value to the Most High as related to men. But you won't get this from these so-called gurus who want you to go out here and talk about high value while getting rid of the things that do have value to God, like your seed, because getting a vasectomy in your 20s basically cuts off your seed. And again, what's the purpose of going out here and getting with women if you're not going to think about finding a partner who will be a suitable wife to allow you to go out here and make sure that your seed goes on for another generation. That's what many of these red pill guys don't understand, because many of these red pill guys, they sit there and say, oh, my eyes have been opened to reality, but we see that they live in a rose-colored world that I talk about in my own books like Stop Simping and The Man Crisis, and these guys live in a rose-colored world that looks like our world, looks like everything around us, but everything is completely distorted. And this whole list as related to high value man shows me that Rollo Tomasi, one of the big manosphere gurus, lives in a rose-colored world, and that world is not connected to our reality. No, it's a complete fantasy, and it's a complete fantasy that is misleading a lot of blind men and leading them to fall straight into a ditch. Because to sit there and make these points as related to so-called high value man shows me that this man doesn't understand his worth as a man, doesn't understand his purpose on earth. He's bought into a lot of feminist and gynocentric talking points and is reacting to those feminist and gynocentric talking points, because this is not a high value man. No, this is the list of a whoremonger male, and the whoremonger male, his whole goal is to, again, just go out here and have lots of money, be able to get with the hottest women, and go out here and be able to do this without having to get these women pregnant. And he wants to be able to go out here and flash his cash as an attachment to get attention from women. And his whole life is basically a gynocentric life. So when I look at this high value man, he's nothing more than a simp. And that's what I called Kevin Samuels back in the day. And again, the high value man eventually becomes the old simp, and that old simp usually gets played by female predators. So the path to the high value man leads to a very tragic end. And again, this is not a path you want to go on as a man, because if you go on this path as a man, you're going to be on the road to becoming a man in crisis. Now, if you want to learn more about how to avoid situations like this and messages like this, you can pick up my books like Stop Simping and my other men's issues books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. If you want to see me make more men's issues videos like this, you can send a donation to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.